Okay, this is the section or Unit 1, Section 3 podcast, Taking Responsibility for Your Health. The first thing we're going to look at is this little chart here that shows leading causes of death for young people. If you will look at the number one leading cause of death for teenagers is motor vehicle injuries. The second is homicide. The third is suicide. All three of those, what they have in common is they are all related to behavior. So our behavior, the way we do things, our habits, they have a lot to do with our health. Unfortunately, most of these things, the motor vehicle injuries, homicide, it's kids killing other kids, suicide, that's kids killing themselves. These things are preventable. There's things that we can do. In a motor vehicle injury, maybe it was someone who didn't have a seatbelt on, maybe it was someone who got behind the wheel after drinking or getting high of some sort. Or maybe they were a passenger in a car with someone. At any rate, these things can be prevented. So we're going to talk about how to prevent these injuries and these deaths. The first thing we're going to talk about is the term prevention. The actual definition for prevention is taking actions to avoid disease, injury, and other negative health outcomes. This is the number one step that the Department of Health and Human Services and the Center for Disease Control, this is what they say that we need to do to avoid serious health consequences. It's just prevention. Taking action to avoid disease. What do you have to do to prevent injuries? Wear your seatbelt in a car, things like that. So moving on, you need to figure out goals. What goals do you want to help eliminate personal risk factors? Some may be unique to you. You may decide that you want to start wearing a seatbelt. You may decide that you want to cut down on fat in your diet. Whatever your target goals are, you need to set those. There's 3 steps that you can take to meet your personal health goals. Goals are pointless if you don't know where you're going. It's kind of like when you're going on a trip. If you don't have a map, how do you know where you're going? These goals and an action plan actually is your roadmap. It's teaching you where to go. So 3 steps: gaining awareness, gaining knowledge, building health skills. The first step, gaining awareness. What good is knowing about a problem if you can't recognize it? So you must first be able to recognize a health problem before you can do anything about it. For example, when you twist your ankle or you have a cold, what do? Those are easy to recognize. Some illnesses, such as high blood pressure, don't really have obvious signs. There are certain sexually transmitted diseases that have no physical symptoms whatsoever. So you got to be able to recognize early signs, and there are doctors who are trained to recognize these early signs of disease. So going to the doctor for an annual checkup is really important. So that's all under gaining awareness. Gaining knowledge. So now you know something's wrong, you're aware, you're able to recognize. So what do? Learn about the problem. So once you become aware of a health problem, you got to learn about it. This can mean, you learn about the causes, the warning signs, possible outcomes. You may also need to know how the problem can be prevented or how to treat it. Most importantly, you need to learn about risk factors. What are some things that you're doing in your life that can increase the likelihood of developing this disease or making it worse? There are reports with new research that shows that kids really don't care about our health. And hopefully that's going to change a little bit. Some sources are more reliable than others, so you've got to be able to differentiate which sources are good sources for health information. So gaining knowledge. The last one, once you've done these, you gain awareness, you're now able to recognize a problem. You've learned about the problem, so that's the knowledge. So building health skills. Knowledge isn't very useful if you don't have the skills to apply it. It's kind of like, what would you think of a baseball player who knew all the rules but never practiced learning how to hit a curveball or how to lay down a bunt or things like that? It's kind of pointless. Yeah, you know all the rules, but it's putting those skills into play. Just knowing about which behaviors are healthy isn't a guarantee of good health. You got to master these skills. So we're going to talk about each one of these now. Analyzing influences. Okay, sorry, I had to technical difficulty there. So, analyzing influences. How do you decide what foods are you going to eat? Do you do it based on commercials you see on TV? Is it based on what you guys eat at home, what your parents teach you to eat? Is it a certain culture? Do you try foods if you have friends like them? All of these are important skills. It's important to recognize, is it your culture, is it the media, or is it your friends? They have an influence on your health. So analyze the influences. Accessing information. Which sources of information about health-related products can you trust? How do you locate a doctor or a mental health counselor? To answer these questions, you got to know how to find and evaluate that health information, and we're going to work on that as we go out through this year. And then communication. Being able to communicate your thoughts and feelings effectively helps you maintain close relationships, and it allows you to resolve conflicts. These things are very beneficial to your health, for your social health as well as your mental and emotional health. Making decisions. So making wise decisions is key to protecting your health. Once you have, Once you have figured out what you need to do, you got to decide what's best. So you've got to, identify possible alternatives, think about possible outcomes, and then consider your values, which you need to know the definition of values. These are the standards and beliefs that are most important to you. Where do those values come from? Is it set in from your family? Is it from church? Is it from your community? Is it from the things you see on TV? So make decisions based on your values, your standards of beliefs. And then back to setting goals. So the goals you set can help translate knowledge into behavior. Once you set a goal, you need to develop an action plan. A goal is pointless if you don't know the steps to achieve that goal. So an action plan, series of specific steps you can take to achieve the goal. Again, I've said this earlier, but the plan is like a roadmap. It helps you get from point A to point B, from where you are to where you want to be. Last skill is, we have 2 more skills. So practicing healthful behaviors. Okay, let's go back one. Practicing healthful behaviors. Do some of your current behaviors enhance your health? Do others place your health at risk? You got to develop strategies for maintaining healthy behaviors and reducing your risky behaviors. Oftentimes, you need to practice a new behavior repeatedly until it will become a habit. Up to 7 days. 7 days to create a new habit. And now, lastly, advocacy. If you are an advocate for something, what does that mean? To advocate means to speak out or write in support of a person or an issue. So it's using communication to influence and support others in making positive health decisions. For example, you can advocate for a friend who has frequent severe headaches. You can encourage them to see the doctor. You can offer to go with your friend. That's being an advocate. It's trying to help someone be healthier, be happier. If they're having constant headaches, there's got to be a reason for that. So advocate, using communication to influence and support others. And in this particular instance, we're talking about health advocacy, how to advocate for health. Okay, next thing, health literacy. And this is the last thing that we're going to talk about. I know you guys have all heard, you've heard literacy. Yeah, it's going out the wazoo in English and everything else. So if you are literate, that means you can read. You can read and write. So in this case, we're going to talk about health literacy. So health literacy is the ability to gather, understand, and use health information to improve your health. Awareness, knowledge, and skills, these all contribute to health literacy. If you become aware of the amount of fat in a diet, then you can learn which foods to avoid. Then you can apply the skills of decision making and set goals to lower your intake of high-fat foods. All this stuff goes hand in hand. When you are computer literate, then you're able to access information on the computer. So same thing, if you are health literate and computer literate, then you can access health information on the computer. Okay, and that is where we end for this podcast. See you next time in class.